Hello, everyone. Today we're going to be looking at IXL assignment E7Y, simple interest. So when we're dealing with simple interest, there is a formula that we can use to solve this. And our formula for simple interest is equal to principal times our rate times our time. And I have color coded this to try to help, you match things up. So we can see our definitions are below. So the interest is always what amount of money is earned after a certain amount of time. Principal, that is the money that you've borrowed or the money you've invested. And then R is the interest rate, and T is the amount of time that you borrow it for. When you're working on this, you do have permission to use a calculator. And like with other formulas you've maybe dealt with, the general process for working with formulas is after you've selected the right one, so after you realize that it's a simple interest question and you have the simple interest formula, your first step will be to identify your information. Step 2 will be to substitute, so plug the numbers into the formula. And then step 3 will be to simplify and solve. All right, let's head on over to IXL and practice just that. All right, here we are on IXL, assignment E7Y, simple interest. A quick little reminder that IXL not only has a visual example, so kind of like what you'd see in a textbook, but they also have their own video that they've created for every single assignment. So if you would like to watch that as well, or even watch that instead, you are more than welcome to. It's a great resource that they have now added to all of the assignments. All right, let's get started on this first question. Joy has $1,000 in a savings account that earns 5% annually. The interest is not compounded. That's telling us we're using the simple interest formula because there's two types of interest formula, simple and compound, and we're only going to be working with simple this year. How much will she have in total in 1 year? And the nice thing is, even though I had just shared with you the formula, they're giving it for you in the question too. So the interest formula is I is equal to principal times rate times time. And they give us the definition. I is interest, P is principal, R is rate expressed as a decimal, and T is the time in years. All right, I'm going to clear these drawings here so we can start from fresh. I will do my best to remember the colors I had on the prior slide. Hopefully I can match it up. But first step is we need to find the principal. So that's the starting amount. And I see here that she started with $1,000 in her savings account. All right, the next thing we need is R, which is our rate. And please note that it says your rate expressed as a decimal because our rate is 5% annually. Well, whenever we're dealing with percentages, whether it's simple interest or tax or tip or simply just finding the percent of a number, we need to convert that percentage into a decimal before we do our multiplication. So let's go ahead and do that off to the side here. So if our rate, our R, is 5%, we need to show that as a decimal. There's two different ways you can do it. The main way is we can divide by 100 because if we think about what the word percent means, it means per 100. The cent, there's 100 cents at a dollar, so per 100. Or if you think about century, a century, 100 years. So we can turn that percentage into a decimal by dividing by 100. And this is the part where you are allowed to use a calculator for. So if we take 5 and divide that by 100, and make sure you're careful to put the 5 in first because it's 5 divided by 100. So you need to type it into your calculator in that order. 5, division symbol, 100. We get 0 and 5 hundredths. Another way that you can do this, if you wish, I'll change to a slightly different blue, is when you divide something by 100, that is the same thing as moving your decimal point 2 places to the left. So when you're turning a percentage into a decimal, you can either just do it by dividing by 100. That kind of helps lessen the chance that you might make a mistake. Or if you want, you can recognize that dividing by 100 is the same thing as moving that decimal point 2 places, and it would put it right here, giving us that same answer as before as 0.05, because we'd have to put a 0 in here as a placeholder. All right, now if we go back to our original problem, the next piece of information we need is T, time in years, and it is after 1 year. All right, let's go ahead and solve our problem here because we are wanting to find that interest. It stays a variable. And then our formula says, circling it in red right now, we need our P, the principal. That was $1,000. And then we multiply that by our rate as a decimal. So that was 5%, but as a decimal, it's 0 and 5/100ths. And that's multiplied by how much time we have, which in this case is 1 year. Once you get to this point, you can go ahead and just put the whole thing in your calculator because it's multiplication all the way across. So we have 1,000 times 0.05 times 1, and we get the answer of an interest of $5. It's a little sloppy. Let me fix that. Now, let's go back and reread our problem because I'm not quite sure. I don't remember. Do we need to just find the interest, or are we wanting to find the total amount of money that Joy is going to have in her savings account? So if I read this last part here, how much will she have in total in 1 year? So it's asking for the total. That means we have one more step, and that's going to be add. We're going to take the principal, so the original amount of money she has, and add on to that the interest. So $1,000 plus $5 would give us $1,005. That's how much money she will end up having in that account after a year. Oh, look at that. I typed it wrong. And that is so easy to do because I didn't even recognize it. I hit submit. So let me clear this so you guys can see because the answer was supposed to be 1,005. That is, oh, it's 50. What did we do wrong? Oh my goodness, I see what I did wrong. I put a number in my calculator wrong. I'll go ahead and hold it up to camera here. Instead of typing in 1,000, I typed in 100. So if you guys were working on this and you got a different answer, sorry for confusing you. That's correct. I'm going to go ahead and keep this because it's easy and it shows that teachers as well, it's so easy to type something wrong in your calculator or possibly even type it wrong into IXL. And even though you knew what you were doing and you really had the right answer, it still messes you up. So just make sure you take your time. Don't make the same mistake I did and rush, and just double check your work. But the beauty of this is we can see that when you get something wrong on IXL, it does a great job of showing you the correct answer, what you answered. And then down at the bottom, it solves it for you. So we can see that, we should have, if I had typed it in my calculator correctly, gotten $50 instead of $5 and then added that in, and the total amount would be 1,050. All right, let's do one more, and I'll make sure this time did not make a mistake. So if I had confused you, my apologies. Let's try again. All right, second question. Tara has $800 in a savings account that earns 10% annually. The interest is not compounded. How much interest will she earn in 2 years? And then that bottom part is giving us our formula and the definition for what each variable stands for. All right, as with formulas, I said this at the very beginning, but the general consistency with any formula is you pick the formula. It's a simple interest formula right here for us. Next up is to identify the information. So that was going to be what we do now. So I can see that I need the P for principal, and she has $800 in her account. That's our principal. Next up is we need to know the rate as a decimal. Well, I see that the rate as a percentage is 10%. So we can divide that percentage by 100, and that will give us our rate as a decimal. And that would be 0 and 1/10. And lastly, we need the T, time in years, and it's going to be 2 years. All right, let's go on to our third step here. And that third step with formulas is you substitute, you plug in the information you've been given, and you can go about solving. So our formula says I for interest is equal to P, the principal of $800, times our rate expressed as a decimal, 0.110, or 0 and 1/10 is the proper way to say that. And then it's multiplied by our T for time, which is 2. All right, at this point, we come to our fourth step of formulas, and that's to simplify and solve. In this case, I just need to simplify. I just need to multiply. So I'm going to be careful to put it into my calculator properly. 800 times 0 and 1/10 times 2, and that gives us an interest of $160. All right, now if I go back and reread the question, I need to figure out whether it's asking for the interest only or whether it's asking for the total. And I can see here it says, how much interest will she earn? So that means in this case, I'm done. It wants the interest only. It simply wants that $160. Now, let me make sure I got it right this time. I did. Excellent. All right, let's try a couple more here together real quick. We'll do 2 more examples. All right, Hazel has $300 in a savings account that earns 7% annually. The interest is not compounded. How much will she have in total in 2 years? All right, we're doing simple interest again, which makes sense. That's kind of the topic of this IXL. And we need to find our principal, which is $300. Our rate is 7%, but we need that as a decimal. So we're going to divide by 100 and get 0 and 7/100. And last but not least, our time in years is 2 years. We can substitute these, plug these into our formula. Interest is equal to our principal of $300 times our rate as a decimal and our time of 2 years. All right, let's multiply this out, see what we get. So 300 times 0 and 7/100 times 2 gives us $42. All right, let's go back and read the problem and see if that's the answer we need, or if we need to do one more step to find the total. Our question says, how much will she have in total in 2 years? So we know that she gets $42 in interest. So if we add that to our principal, we will get the total amount in her account, which is $342 as our final answer. All right, let's do one more problem together. All right, as you get higher and higher into the SMART scores, your numbers will get a little bit larger. But the nice thing is, one, it's the same formula, so you can keep doing the same process. You just have bigger numbers, but that's okay. It shouldn't scare you because you have a calculator. Just be careful. Don't make the mistake I did on number 1 and type things in wrong. That can kind of be where large numbers can trip you up. So just be careful to type everything in your calculator correctly, to write everything down in your notebook the right way. All right, Hazel has $37,950 in a savings account and earns 7% annually. The interest is not compounded. How much will she have in total in 2 years? Use the interest formula I equals PRT, where I is interest, P is principal, R is rate, and T is time. Oh, we need our principal, which is the starting amount of money. This is how much she's starting with. And our rate as a decimal, well, our rate is 7%. We can turn that into a decimal by dividing by 100. And we have 0 and 7/100 for that. And our time is 2 years. Oh, if we substitute this into our formula right here, I for interest is equal to our principal times our rate as a decimal times our time in years. What do we get when we multiply that out? 37,950 times 0 and 7/100 times 2 is an interest of $5,313. All right, let's read the question, see if we're done or not. It says, how much will she have in total? So we need the total amount. We're going to add that to what she started with, that original principal, and we will have our final answer, which is Hazel ends up having $43,000, 206. So $43,263 in her savings account. All right, I hope that this video helped you understand formulas, specifically the simple interest formula, a little bit better. It is now your guys' turn to practice, but don't forget, if you need to see some more examples or just hear it from another perspective, check out IXL's video. It is an awesome resource. Bye, guys.